curious about what is really going on in our reality. I mentioned prior to playing the Facebook piece from The Onion about Russia and the individual about in 2008. His name was, what's their last name? I can't pronounce it very well. Sarnev. And they were arrested in Russia for a protest. And now in this paradigm of 2013, we're dealing with the whole idea of the two brothers named Sarvan, one being murdered, another one under custody. Now, what does this have to do with Facebook and them being with Privacy Act? Here it is on, this is from Russian Times and also from CNET by Kline McCullough. House approves CISPA, that's CISPA, and that has to do with the Cyber Intelligence Sharing and Protection Act. So if you want to know what that means in layman's terms, that means that now, as a result of this bombing taking place on a few days ago, today's date is April 22nd, Monday, 2013, as a result of the whole Twitter chatting and things of that nature, the House of Representatives decided to adopt the Cyber Intelligence Sharing and Protection Act. The vote was 288 to 127. So what does that mean? That essentially means that there's authorization for all emails, internet providers to share confidential information with the federal government. So if you didn't understand that correctly, so if you thought that The Onion was a joke, now in reality, as it stands, all your data going across can and will be, if you're a person of interest, so to speak, I'm pretty sure that your information will be viewed and passed on to higher authorities. So once again, that's a little, I want to say news and views, but a little news and views from Mind to Mind. And I have our guest on the line. I would like to really introduce him. Before I do that, Dr. Blair, are you there?
Yes, I am, and good morning to you there.
Good morning to you as well. Before we get started, I definitely want to give, me and Vonda want to give our condolences to you with the transition of your son. And we want to acknowledge that on the air before we got into the meat of things. And we just thank you again for, at this particular time in your life, to even make an effort to come on the line with us. And we can't thank you enough for doing that.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate the consolation, the deference that you're showing by understanding that. And yes, it is a tragic time in my life. He's my eldest son, and of course he was ill for some time. So let me say, because you have a vast audience also, and many people over the last 2 years, when I've been on various shows, I've asked them to send meditation and prayers to and for him. And I really think that that's what kept him around as long as he was. But in the last month or so, he became, well, he was in pain.
Okay.
After that, I almost asked the Creator to release him. And so, but all of you who did participate over the last 2 years, and for you in offering deference now, I thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
Let me also say that we may be the ones that are in trouble by staying here.
I would agree with you in one sense.
They say, is there such a thing as hell? I begin to think this is the second name of this planet. The planet is beautiful, but the creatures that are on it in general are not. And what's happening now is that the corporations and the negative, unspiritual people that are now acting in government positions and in strategic positions now, they're really tamping up. And as I've said before, and I haven't been a guest on your show in some time, and I thank you for the return request. This planet is changing. The people on here are either going to become very spiritual and awakened, or they become very negative and die. It's just about that simple. And of course, that precludes a lot of other things. It goes on an assumption, and we really don't have 5 hours to go into all of it. But I do have a website, and I'll give that number out with your permission during the course of the time. I have hundreds of tapes of these things. And of course, if you just watch the news, and if you interpret the news, and if you go to various sites for interpretation, rather than just going to one that they sanction, you'll find that everything that's being said is just as much evidence pro or con for it or against it. It's just a matter of what do you choose. They say extreme right wing, left wing. It's past all of that. It's those who are spinning yarns to more or less tell you what isn't happening and make you believe it is, versus those who cry in the wilderness and say, well, look, does this make sense? Does this make sense? And most of the things, as you're seeing now, they leave so many loopholes. And that's why I say now, the truth behind what's really happening now is unbelievable. And to understand it, it would take a long time. But succinctly, I will simply say at the beginning that if you don't understand aliens and extraterrestrials, if you don't understand how old this planet really is and how long it's had intelligent inhabitants on it, and if you don't understand now the corporation takeover of our planet and its governments, then nothing else is going to make sense. So I say that, and then of course, in the news everywhere, of course, is Boston, Boston, Boston. And that's very interesting too, because I had a person who was going to bring me into Boston to speak. And mine was an overview on the energy fields that are changing, the new sun and electromagnetic fields that are changing, the new diseases that are coming by and how they're based on a lot of electromagnetics. But here, boom, this drops. So he said, now, well, let's kind of let it blow for about 2 weeks, and then I'll bring you in again, because the people will need, to have an explanation. Well, you've got to be him. You thought that I might be able to offer something too, and I think that I can. And so let me also say, what you're going to hear from me, you can look up on the internet yourself. There's nothing big about it. It's just that I am a compilator, and I try to put it all together from both sides. But all over the internet, all over the Facebook, tweeting back and forth on TV, if you go to the right channels and not just 2579 and Fox, you'll see the same thing. As much information that says one thing, there's just as much before the other. Of course, Alex Jones now and Drudge Report, they're getting taken to task because they've shown pictures before the other pictures that the government sanctioned things took, which makes it a lie. They show you things right there that are a lie to everything that they're saying otherwise. So what happens then, the authorities say, look, disregard everything else, but hear what I say. And when you listen to what they say and you see how much they lie, who do you believe? So there's an old statement, and it's a rough statement. I didn't make it, I simply quote from it. That a government who fears the people is liberty, and a people who fear the government is tyranny. And we're so close now to tyrannical consciousness that it's a shame. And those who are spiritual can feel that change going on. The church is being taken asunder, churching, having pedophiles into the church who are supposed to be teaching the way of the cross, and so drugs that they're giving you now and shots that they're giving you that are worse than the vaccines that they're being inoculated for with chips in them and so on like this. It's an amazing time. Sprays in the air through chemtrails with aluminum and barium, which cause emphysema and sinus trouble. It's just amazing. And yet this is supposed to be not happening. And so when people get sick, everybody's crazy that they weren't sick before they took the shot and so on like that. So with that in mind, I'm going to give you two sides to this Boston thing. And then I want to go to this thing on the West Coast. And then, of course, up to you how you wish to address your audience. It's your show. We can see if anybody has anything to say about it. I think most of the basic thing about the 23,000 runners that were there in Boston and supposed to be the 3 people that were injured. No, I'm sorry. I think it was about the 3 people who were killed and maybe over 144
were maimed.
Or so on like that again. Well, that's gone up again now. They're saying now there's 7 killed. And many people now have severed arms and amputees and stuff. It's almost like they were in a wartime or thing because it was just that shrapnel that's everywhere again. But it's also interesting, too, that they first said that there was a person of interest being detained. This is a new phrase they got now, persons of interest. So who's interested in the people and why? It doesn't say, are they interested because of what happened on the event? You assume that. They're saying a person of interest. Who knows what that person of interest may be? The first time they said it was a 20-year-old Saudi who had suffered burns and injuries as he ran from had a backpack on had a pack on his back, and so they got in there. Well, it turned out again that he's supposed to be on a scholarship here, so and again like that. Then they went and they said, well, there were 2 other persons of interest, and of course, those 2 other persons of interest, you said to forget everything else that you saw, and now these are the ones to look for. Well, who said that these were the ones to look for? When I saw the film played back on, what's the guy? I just said his name before.
His name escapes me as well.
I just said, well, anyway, Alex Jones.
Right.
I saw
Info Wars.
and I watched that film, and he had it on there for a long time. I had friends calling him, people all over the internet, go see what Alex Jones is saying. And then when the government comes up with this stuff, you can tell who's lying. Because the very picture we were just saying, I guess they didn't know it went across the internet so fast. That's why they're trying to close down the internet.
Yeah, that's why they just passed that bill, the cyber intelligence. Yeah.
You can tell who's lying, they're lying.
Yeah.
Now, when does your government lie to you and you call it a good government? You know? I'd rather believe him than I would them because his holds up theirs. They would change theirs daily till they get something that they want you to do. So I'll tell you one thing. In the past, every time a civilization has fallen, it's fallen from within. It fell, as I say, when the people no longer trust the government. The government must control the people because their laws are unjust. The government runs away with the money, the taxes, and the health of the people. And then finally there's an overthrow. And if there isn't a successful overthrow, there are acts of nature, so-called, that wipe out the place. If you're watching these acts of nature now that are happening, we're getting our warning signs like mad. I'm kind of rambling.
With regards to
when my son was buried over the weekend, and I came back. And when I came back out of Nashville, and there's a direct slam, coming from Tennessee up here. I'm in Illinois.
Okay.
So many of the planes were being rerouted. All American airlines that had the word American on it, they stopped flying them during this time. So we wonder what that means too. But we had to come and go around and come in from St. Louis and from Missouri. That's because of the clouds that were up there. Well, I had not been this high before. I've never been in jet fighters and this kind of stuff. We went up to 42,000 feet, and I'd never been up to 42,000 feet before. When we went up there, we had to go through this cloud, and the whole plane was shaking. Whatever was in this cloud reacted so much to the engine that the whole plane shook. I got kind of worried.
I understand that.
I joined my son right quick.
That's not funny, but I understand that, right?
Now to keep it light. Long story short, when I looked down on this cloud formation, I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. It almost looked like one of these, they call it a Grecian cathedral. Before the Greeks, of course, you had many people that would be in cathedral. It was like a huge throne or something. It's hard to describe it. But it was over 4 states. And it was so dense that you couldn't see through the daggone thing. When we landed, the plane shook again as we came through it again. And then I also saw some satellite pictures. I have some friends in high places, I guess is what I call it. And they showed you some satellite photos too. And about 4 days ago, there was something that looked like a snail in the sky. Let me give a better description. There was a cloud formation. It looked like a babushka or a woman with a pompadour, where you had a lot of hair.
Kind of like Marge Simpson from The Simpsons, huh?
Maybe something like that. Like the shell was all coiled up, and then the tail dropped back. Well, the shell was in the middle. Now, this is in the air now. I guess, I don't know how high up it was. It was very high up. But one part of the head of pompadour was touching near Maine and Connecticut and all. The other one was over Paris, France. It took up the entire Atlantic Ocean. And then as it dipped down to where the body of the snail would be, it went all the way down to the Dominican Republic. Had that thing dropped down 1,000 feet and moved, we'd have had tsunamis on both coasts, and the whole thing would have been wiped out. That's how close now nature or whoever is watching us is playing with us. And we're still out here acting like bad children. We could be wiped out in a second. And the thing is, again, people are beginning to get a little fearful. They're beginning to get more respect for spirituality because they can see the lies. They see the sickness. They see the wars and rumors of wars. They see the flowers not blooming, the flowers blooming out of season, earthquakes in diverse places, animals not bearing their young. All of these things are not only prophetic from the Bible, but from the Quran, parts of the Bhagavad Gita. These things are not just happening for nothing. People have got to understand. We're in trouble here.
Yeah, Dr. Blair, I heard a couple things in your conversation there to our audience here at WPEB 88.1 here in Philadelphia. Name of the program is Mind to Mind. My name is Shema'yah. I'm the students of Vonda, Kline. Our special guest is Dr. Delbert Blair from the Meta Center. I heard a few things. One, you kept mentioning the word person of interest. We've been programmed for the past we've been programmed for quite some time as far as the humanity as a whole, but as far as when it comes to television, there's a program called Person of Interest where they use surveillance cameras.
I can't hear you too well. I don't know. You kind of faded out on me. I don't know if it's me or you or what.
Well, that's definitely me. And
that's better now.
Yeah, okay. That's definitely me. That was a little situation. I had a little technical challenge here. To repeat what I said in the beginning, you mentioned a couple things.
Okay, now you're saying it back again.
Now that's something. Now that's something else going on. That's
right there is loud now.
Okay.
What did you just do?
I guess I gotta change my my position of the mic, but there's some other issues
That's
going
good
on.
now. I can hear you now.
Okay. Now one of the things you mentioned about person of interest, and there's a TV program talking about person of interest where they use surveillance cameras and things of that nature from stores or street cameras, and it appears that once again, television or Hollywood is letting us know what I guess the game plan, so to speak, and if we have eyes to see, it's there being unfolded before us. And you also mentioned about being in the airplane or the jet plane 40,000 feet above. Now, you may or may not, I know you're familiar with, some of our audience members may not be familiar with the whole idea of geoengineering and longitudinal or stress waves in the medium. For regular layman's term, there are some people that allegedly, for the radio, have the ability to manipulate weather. So from your perspective or from your experience of people that you talk to, do you think that we're unknowingly being parties to or pawns in a weather war type of situation?
Okay, I got enough of your comments in order to address them, but let me say again, you're coming in and out on whatever the mic is on my say so, but I do understand what you've asked, so let me address it now.
Well, maybe we're not the only ones online then.
Oh, that's what it is then, huh? Yeah. Okay, well, you're coming in and out.
Can you hear me?
You know, I'm used to that too.
Okay.
Can you hear my?
I cover a whole field called weather wars.
Hear me.
And I've talked about that now for almost, since about 2004, with the coming of the new sun and all like this. And you heard what I said, the coming of the new sun again. Right now, there's a guy by the name of Robert England, who's now dead, that worked a program what was called HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project. It started off in Wisconsin. They moved it to Gakona, Alaska, where they have 36 arrays of 36 towers that broadcast billions of watts of energy into the air. The whole story there would take up the whole show. I'll just go and surmise it again. They used that for one thing. What they wound up doing is they found that they could cut a hole supposedly into the ionosphere so that the payload of rocket launches, they wouldn't have to use as much gas and fossil fuel because this thing would blast it up there, and when it blasted up, it went in the hole. So they said they were using that so they could launch satellites and still have payload enough from there. Well, they also used it to bounce it off of satellites to look into the ground for minerals and gold and for what they call cities and other things that may be under construct. They used it to broadcast over the horizon because the direct shot, since it would go off into space because the Earth curves, they couldn't keep up with submarines and usually military things. So this would bounce a signal down so they could do that. But then they used that one together with spraying metals into the air, barium, aluminum, titanium, and with the Fukushima Daiichi plant, they then put plutonium and strontium into the air. So our Earth now is covered with particulated metals. When you breathe in metals into mucous membranes, it helps you to get irritations. It causes cancer cells, irritations, cysts, everything else you can talk about. And people now are getting all kinds of sinus trouble, and they're actually breathing barium. And barium is a filamented metal, which means that's when sometimes you see like angel hair and stuff falling.
Right.
Barium oxide. So when you breathe that, that's going to cause all kind of respiratory things happening. So that's just one of many. So yes, when you bounce those signals off of that, you can begin to make storms. And of course, I always use an easy example because I've done so many lectures on it. If you take a room in your house that has 4 walls and a door or something to it, and then you say you close off one of those doors or so, and you have a fan blowing, and you blow fan from the doorway there all the way across the room, well, you got a draft, you got a current. They call that a jet stream. And so what happens if you hang a curtain in the middle of that room, well, the fan's going to hit the curtain. It's not going to be quite as much air getting to the other side, and it's going to begin to circle. If you put a blanket up there, then it's going to hit that. It's not going through it. It's going to bounce back, and pretty soon you get circular energy. Well, that's what they've done. They set up this billions of watts of electricity into the air, forming a screen. Then they bounce the signals off of that, the air off of that. It causes turbulence. So when it's wide, it's called a hurricane or so. If it's small, it's little eddies called tornadoes. If it happens over an ocean, it's called a tsunami or something along that line. Not a tsunami, but a whirlwind or whirlpool or a spout, and all like this again. And the only difference between a typhoon in the Pacific and a hurricane in the Atlantic is the name. And it cuts down so people don't realize how much turbulence is going on in our planet. So they not only can create weather, but Russia has one of the best weather modifying machines. It was called ELF.
Right.
ELOT. I didn't understand Russian, so ELOT means something like electrified aerial display or something. Europe has, what do they call that?
Isaac?
Yes, the European Scattered Scalar Technology. You got it directly. You're doing your research. So we don't know what China has now, but China has something too. So now, when they start to make weather, whenever they want to, and they don't question each other, we get turbulence and mess. In addition to which, with all the sunspot activity and all these solar flares and stuff coming around, we got hell here. And nobody knows what you're going to get. And if you notice, nobody knows what we're getting now. Rain one day, snow one day. In the middle of winter, you get a heat wave. In the middle of a heat wave, you get winter. Everything here is imbalanced. And when things are imbalanced in nature, things become imbalanced in you.
Well, let me say this,
Right.
Dr. Delbert Blair. We're going to have to take a break real quick, and we'll be right back. And when we come back, can you answer this question of what would be some of the things we could do
So you're
to...
fading out on me again. I can't hear you.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to WPEB 88.1 FM, and we'll be right back. Our guest today is Dr. Delbert Blair, and we're in the studios with Shema'yah and Vonda Kline, and you're listening to Mind to Mind.